The sun was sinking behind the red cliffs of Arizona when a young Apache girl named Naya stumbled along the dusty road. Her dress was torn, her ankle was bleeding, and fear filled her dark eyes. She had been searching for her younger brother since dawn, but every stranger she approached turned away. Naya finally reached the small frontier town of Red Creek. Horses stood outside the saloon, merchants shouted from wooden stalls, and cowboys crowded the dusty street. She tried asking for help, but people avoided her. Some stared suspiciously at her Apache clothing, while others simply pretended not to hear. "Please," Naya whispered to a rancher. "My brother is missing. He is only 8 years old." The rancher looked toward the saloon and shook his head. "Not my problem." Another man laughed. "Go ask your own people." Naya lowered her eyes. She had expected danger from strangers, but she had not expected such complete indifference. She turned away, fighting tears, when suddenly a deep voice came from behind her. "You said your brother is missing?" Naya turned. A tall cowboy stood beside a weathered black horse. His coat was dusty, his hat was pulled low, and a faded scar crossed his left cheek. Nobody in town seemed to know his name. Some simply called him the Nameless Cowboy. "Yes," Naya answered carefully. "His name is Taza. He disappeared near the canyon yesterday." The cowboy studied her injured ankle. "You've been walking all day." Naya nodded. "Then you won't find him by walking another mile." He stepped toward his horse and lowered his hand. "Climb on." Naya hesitated. "Why would you help me?" The cowboy looked toward the distant mountains. "Because somebody should." Those 4 words changed everything. Within minutes, Naya was riding behind him through the desert. The cowboy followed the trail toward the canyon, stopping often to examine footprints in the dry earth. Naya watched him silently. He moved like someone who understood the land better than any man in Red Creek. "What is your name?" she finally asked. The cowboy remained quiet for several seconds. "Names aren't important. Everyone has a name." "Maybe." Naya almost smiled. "You are strange." "So I've been told." As darkness approached, the cowboy found a small footprint beside a dry creek bed. "This is your brother's?" Naya climbed down and examined it. "Yes." "Taza." The cowboy pointed toward the canyon. Then he went that way. They continued deeper into the wilderness. The temperature dropped quickly, and the desert became silent except for the sound of their horses. Suddenly, the cowboy stopped. "Listen." Naya held her breath. Far away, they heard a faint cry. "Taza." Naya ran toward the sound, forgetting her injured ankle. The cowboy followed quickly. They found the boy trapped between 2 rocks at the bottom of a narrow ravine. His leg was injured, and he was terrified. "Naya." She dropped beside him. "Taza, I'm here." The boy began crying. "I thought nobody was coming." Naya hugged him tightly. "I promised I would find you." The cowboy examined the rocks. "We need to get him out before the temperature falls." He searched around the ravine and found a strong fallen branch. Using it as a lever, he carefully shifted the rocks enough for Taza to crawl free. But the boy couldn't stand. Without hesitation, the cowboy lifted him onto his back. They began the long journey back. Halfway through the night, a storm suddenly rolled across the desert. Wind screamed between the cliffs, and rain began pouring down. The cowboy led them beneath an overhang, protecting Naya and Taza from the worst of it. Naya noticed blood running down his arm. "You're hurt." "It's nothing." "You're bleeding." "I've had worse." She tore a strip from her dress and wrapped his arm. The cowboy looked at her with quiet surprise. "You didn't have to do that." Naya smiled faintly. "You helped us. Somebody should help you." For the first time, the cowboy smiled. At sunrise, they returned to Red Creek. People gathered in the street when they saw Naya carrying her injured brother while the mysterious cowboy walked beside them. The same rancher who had refused to help Naya stepped forward. "You found the boy?" The cowboy nodded. The rancher looked embarrassed. "I didn't know." "You knew enough," Naya said quietly. The street became silent. The sheriff approached the cowboy. "You've done this town a good service." The cowboy simply climbed onto his horse. "Take care of the boy." Naya stepped forward. "Wait." He stopped. "You still haven't told me your name." The cowboy looked back. After a long pause, he said, "Eli." Naya smiled. "Eli what?" He shook his head. "Just Eli." Then he rode away. Months passed. Taza recovered completely, and Naya's ankle healed. The people of Red Creek began treating the Apache family differently. Some apologized for how they had behaved, while others began trading fairly with them. Naya never forgot Eli. One autumn afternoon, a group of armed men arrived in town. They were land thieves led by a ruthless businessman named Clayton Voss. He claimed the Apache settlement had no legal right to the land and demanded that everyone leave. When Naya's father refused, Voss threatened them. "We have papers, weapons, and money. You have nothing." Naya remembered Eli. She rode toward the mountains alone. She found him near an abandoned ranch, repairing a fence. "Eli," he turned. "What happened?" "Men are taking our land." Eli studied her face. "How many?" "8." He saddled his horse immediately. By sunset, Eli rode into Red Creek. He wasn't alone. Behind him came several ranchers, farmers, and townspeople. The same people who had once ignored Naya now stood beside her family. The sheriff confronted Voss and examined his documents. The papers were forged. Voss was arrested for fraud and attempted land theft. Naya looked at Eli. "You brought everyone." Eli nodded. "No one should have to face 8 armed men alone." Naya smiled. "You finally learned that names are important." Eli laughed softly. "Maybe you're right." Years later, Naya became one of the most respected teachers in the region. She taught children from different communities together, believing no child should ever feel invisible or unwanted. And whenever someone asked why she had dedicated her life to helping others, she told them about the day nobody stopped for an injured Apache girl. Then she told them about one nameless cowboy who did. She never forgot his simplest lesson. When everyone else walks past someone in need, sometimes all it takes is one person willing to stop. And sometimes, that one person can change an entire town.